Welcome to the Same Day Podcast, where we discuss driving incremental business growth and other topics related to real estate, property management, and entrepreneurship. Now, to the show at hand.
Matt Zalk here. I'm the host of the Same Day Podcast, where I connect with top business leaders and real estate experts. Past guests include Mark Marquin, talking about lending. He's a mortgage lender, talking about lending, which is particularly germane to this current environment where it's harder to get financing and more expensive to get financing, having had so many interest rate rises over the past year and a bit. Jay Connor talking about raising private money in case you want to do that for investment purposes. And Darren Huang, who has 100 units under management and a host of industrial properties. Today's episode is brought to you by Chris Lyle's State Farm. Chris Lyle's State Farm helps you protect your most precious assets and investments, whether it's your home and auto, investment rental properties, or other valuables. Call Chris Lyle's State Farm for a quick and painless phone call to potentially save you double digits on all of your insurance needs. Visit diallyle.com or call his office at 918-878-7771. Today's episode is also brought to you by Keyrenter Property Management. At Keyrenter Property Management, we are a full-service property management company helping our clients buy, renovate, and operate real estate assets. We help our clients build wealth while taking the headache out of real estate ownership. Go to keyrenterpmc.com or email us at info@keyrenterpmc.com. Before I introduce today's guest, I want to give a big thank you to Yoni Schmidt, a true friend of Key Renters and Blankets. He's a huge supporter of Blanket, which we're going to get into in a second. He's a colleague of ours here. He also happens to be my wife's first cousin. We love Yoni and are glad that he's a part of our business. But that is to say, he introduced us to Lior. Lior Abramovich is a co-founder and CEO of Blanket, bringing a decade of experience in the single-family rental market with over $150 million worth of acquisitions, over 1,000 individual investors. He's also the co-founder of a nonprofit organization that renovates homes for senior citizens and survivors of the Holocaust, those that are in need. And he's completed 8 years of service as a naval commander, which we'll get into here in a little bit. Lior Abramovich, welcome to the show. Thanks for being on. How are you?
Pretty good. Excited to be here, man.
I'm so excited to have you. As I was saying before the show, I've just heard about you from so many different angles. Everybody's like, you got to talk to Blanket, you got to talk to Lior, you got to figure out what's going on, because apparently this is the next greatest thing in property management, retention, and just a super cool technology. And I'll have to say, not that the website is everything, but when you go into a website and you see it, it looks just super sleek and sexy. You know that you're dealing with a real company. Sometimes you get on these companies and they look like they were built in the 90s, and you're like, I don't know what's going on. Let's start from the beginning. No, let's not start from the beginning. Let's start with Blanket Homes, and then I want to figure out what kind of drives you and how you got there. What is Blanket Homes, and what's the gap that it fills for both property owners and, as a result, property management companies?
Okay, so let's start with the basics. We call it a property retention platform, and it serves exactly that purpose, is to help the owners and the property managers to retain and grow their portfolios. Okay. Because we normally hear about this, misalignment of interest between property managers and rental property owners, that on the one hand, the rental property owner, wants to just save as much money as it can. The property manager wants to make as much money as he can from every property. And this is sort of like a misalignment. I say, on the contrary, like 180 degrees, because when you ask, for example, a property manager, what are their interests and why are they doing what they're doing, and the rental property owner, you'll find it's probably pretty much the same.
We want to save the owner money so they stay long term.
Even more than that, it's even deeper. Like, why do we invest in rental properties? It's one of two reasons.
Yeah.
We want to build the financial future for ourselves.
Yeah.
Financial freedom, early retirement, etc. Everybody sees it a little bit differently, but to build a stronger and a more stable financial future. And the second thing is to leave a legacy for our kids or our loved ones.
Yeah.
Why do property managers build great and successful companies? Same thing.
Exactly.
Is to build a stable financial future and to leave a legacy for our loved ones and our kids. What's deeper and stronger than having this perfect alignment of interest? So I'm starting with that because eventually the mutual goal of a property manager and a rental owner is to grow their portfolio.
Yeah.
This is what it is. And this is exactly what Blanket is doing. It's helping both parties grow together towards a mutual beneficial goal, and eventually, if we want to use bigger terms, is a better future for all. And the gaps that we identified is really that first understanding of many rental property owners around, okay, I can get a lot of guidance, advice, and pretty much tips for success from my property manager, because who knows better what the hell is
Right.
going on in the market?
Right.
Who knows better which type of properties should I focus on? Where are the best tenants? Where are the fastest lease up times? Pretty much everything I need as a strategy, and also connections to vendors, like preferred lender, preferred insurance provider, you
Sure.
name it. I can get all of that. But as property managers normally, and I'm like taking on the hat of the property manager for a second, we are dealing with so much on the basic things, which are maintaining the property, making sure everything is okay with the tenant. All this like heavy lifting that we normally don't want to deal with as rental property owners, because this is why we came here in the first place.
Yeah.
We want to build that portfolio, but keep doing what we do, which is our day-to-day job, or maybe even other things. So there's a lot to grasp here. And we understood that there is a big need. There's also a big, I would say, aspiration from the side of a property manager to be more than just a property manager, to be a trusted advisor, to grow into the role of an asset manager and provide what their clients, the rental owners, are expecting them to be, instead of just the typical, as some people say, toilet fixer, rent collector, etc.
Yeah.
And another thing which is also aligns very well here, when you look at commercial real estate, for example, when you look at how REITs operate and how the big funds operate, which is the most important department in these companies? And I worked with one and worked in one. It's the investor relations department.
Why is that?
This is the revenue generating department. Of course, there's the operational side of things, but who takes care of the capital calls? Who brings in the money?
Yeah.
That enables everything. This is the investor relations. And these companies, the REITs, the funds, etc., they work with millions of investors in the United States.
Yeah.
Who else works with millions of investors in the United States?
Property managers.
Do we have an investor relations mindset like the commercial real estate and big funds have?
Man,
we don't.
I mean, the challenge is that when you have a person that owns an investor that owns one property, like we have an investor relations mindset, but it always goes to our biggest investors. So we go out and visit them, and we have them in Tulsa, and we do all sorts of things, and we talk to them, and we do portfolio reviews. But you don't have time to do it if you have 3,000 or 5,000 properties and 1,000 owners. You don't have time to do it with everybody. We've long wondered and thought and planned how we can do a sort of property update, a performance review with each of our clients.
Exactly.
And if you had to do them for every client, it would take your whole year. But you can certainly do it with your
100%.
biggest ones. But we've thought about this. It's a great idea. Okay. So the REITs have investor relations people, but it also, I mean, so much of that is to say, hey, you invested in REIT 1, 2, and 3, for example. 1 killed it. 2 underperformed a little bit. 3 has been flat, and 4 we want you to invest in, but these are the ancillary benefits that you get in us versus somebody else, et cetera, et cetera. So it's about continuing the investment journey with somebody and explaining to them why, even though a fund is a little bit down, they should continue to make the investment.
Exactly. Okay. And this really leads me to that second part. So we talked about growth. Growth is the main goal, but there's also another thing that we're not talking a lot about, which is optimization. How do I optimize and make the most of what I currently have? Maybe I should replace my insurance provider. Maybe I should sell a property and buy a different one, 1031 it. I can do a lot of stuff that can help me make more from what I have right now. And I think these 2 buckets of responsibilities are the biggest gap that we have right now in the industry. And property managers can and should fulfill it. And this is something that I saw for so many years, because we'll get to in a second, on the experience, but I was always on this bridge between thousands of rental property owners and property managers. And the only stakeholder in your entire investment journey as a rental owner that you're literally getting married with is the property manager. This is the only stakeholder that wants your best interest for the long run,
right?
And not for the sake of completing a quick deal and leaving you to handle the results,
right?
And by understanding that, before we started Blanket, this was my biggest dream. I wanted to solve this. I wanted to somehow bring a platform, bring a tool, whatever, to make this seamless, to make this usable in a way that we as rental property owners, and I'm like looking at my mom, my parents, and my grandparents that have rental properties. I want them to get all they need, the same as any institutional or accredited investor gets in his quarterly performance
Right.
reports, and takes everything, and everything is covered. Like, I want that. I want that. The people who, and as you said, we don't necessarily have a lot of time to do these owner performance review sessions with every owner that has just one property. But what if we could? How amazing would that be? How we also as property managers would be able to really win clients for life.
Yeah.
So
Stickiness, creating that stickiness. We've often thought about
exactly.
stickiness in terms of doing more than an average property management company. Many property management companies say, I'm not paying your taxes, I'm not paying your mortgage, I'm not paying your insurance bill. It exposes me to risk and liability and all sorts of stuff. And it does. I mean, the truth is it does. If something comes in and you miss the tax bill and there's a late fee, the owner says,
Exactly.
hey, you owe the paying the late fee. It's on you. But in doing that late fee and paying that late fee and showing the commitment, and maybe you split it, maybe you say, look, I'm willing to do this, but occasionally I'm going to give myself you have 100 properties and I'm going to give myself 5 grace late periods, and you're going to pay those because you don't pay me to actually send the money out. Maybe I'll have some grace, but whatever else. Doing that creates stickiness. So that if somebody wants to leave, they go, oh, it's way more painful. I've got to take back my tax payments and my mortgage payments and my insurance payments, et cetera. So this same blanket is in essence a stickiness tool. You call it retention, stickiness. It's the exact same thing. It's how can you do more? How can you provide more service for your clients and keep greater parts of the overall life cycle of one house, one property, so that you can both extract more and give more. I should say give more and extract more, because we know business and all business is about service, providing service.
100%. 100%. I would say even more than that. There were several years. Now it's already so like faded away a bit, but there were several years that the entire property management industry was sort of like in a race to the bottom in terms of management fees. It was always like, I'll take less management fees and I'll bring in more clients. But it's exactly what it is. It's a race to the bottom. The race is all about racing to the top with providing as much value as we can for clients.
Right.
And that this is sort of like where you win. This is really when you win and create that stickiness and create those clients for life, when you provide more value. And again, it requires time, it requires resources, but when you show that commitment, like, who wouldn't want to stick with you for the long run and really be there? So with all that being said, yeah.
I mean, there's just my experience with property management is that you can do everything right for 5 years, and then you can put a bill on the wrong property and people are like, that's it, I'm done with you, you've stolen from me. And you're like, well, let me just explain. We have 5 addresses at 123 Main Street. One's Main Street, Main Place, Main Court, Main Avenue. And it's one mistake. And people are very quick to assume the worst about property managers and fire you. And that causes the churn that we're trying to avoid here with Blanket, that we're trying to avoid at Keyrenter. And so anything that you can do to build goodwill, like showing them the full picture of their portfolio, showing them the value that you create, obviously. And that was where we came from. We were coming from it from the churn side when we decided a year ago that we wanted to have some tool that would allow owners to see a full comprehensive picture of their portfolio, their property, but also how many work orders. Like now, an owner does not see how many work orders we get sent that we kick back to a tenant and say, this is your responsibility to do this because the owner shouldn't pay for this according to our lease. They don't see how many work orders we receive, pick up the phone, troubleshoot it with a tenant, hang up the phone, press cancel. They never see that stuff. So we thought, inclusive of everything that Blanket Homes does, and I want to get into it, but inclusive of everything that Blanket Homes does, how do we show them how much we handle that they would have to handle if they did this by themselves, where we save them money?
Exactly.
So, anyways,
so true and so on point. It's like in a relationship. It's all about communication, and it's like in marriage, you build credits. You know, you stay home with the kids, you build credits for afterwards to hang out with the guys. Like, you need to show those credits, and I think this is really the main issue here: is how do we communicate the successes, but also the things that didn't work out well, so that when something doesn't work well, it's not the main message. It's not the only message.
Yeah.
And having that ability, and again, because time is the biggest challenge here, having that ability to communicate proactively and not reactively and bring forward those insights and things that we as rental owners need. And it's really not a lot. We and I consider myself as a rental owner. We don't ask for a lot. We just want to know how everything's going and be communicated on sort of like the reasoning behind stuff.
Right.
Why are we doing what we're doing? Or why is this work order that just came in handled the way that it was handled? Just to be in the know. Like,
Yeah.
I know some might be a little bit more, I would say, requiring of additional stuff, but at the end of the day, it's not a lot. But it takes time. And I think having a platform like Blanket is really something that when we started, this was the vision to provide a solution that doesn't require that so much time, that it is difficult to provide, especially for the one rental property owners that really need that.
Yeah.
They're the ones that really need that. They are more, I would say, sensitive or emotional about some of their properties rather than rational and just, taking care of the numbers. And so this is where I think where this entire solution really fits in perfectly to provide the rental owners the transparency they need, the clarity they need, so that when there is a challenge, it wouldn't be the whole story.
Right.
This is sort of like,
so how does Blanket
approach.
provide that? What's the gap that, or how is it filling that gap?
So our platform is built with two, we can call them components. It's built with an investor dashboard and a property marketplace. Now, the platform is white labeled with the property manager's logo, meaning the property manager has the control and the ability to really customize it to his client's needs. And how does that fit in? So on the investor dashboard, what do we have in the investor dashboard? We have things like, for example, my portfolio value, how much my entire portfolio of properties is valued at. The total equity that I have in my properties and my entire portfolio, because what we do, we integrate with the property management software of the property manager, but we also pull in a lot of data from county records and other data providers, some of the largest ones in the industry. And you'll be surprised to know how much data is out there. So
Scared even.
Indeed, I gotta say as well, indeed. But it enables to also do some good things and a lot of useful things. And this is what we're doing. So we're enriching all that data that you already have in your property management software, so that we provide the owner the full view. Because the owner statements are okay to provide that some kind of accounting snapshot, but it doesn't give me the performance view. It doesn't give me the investment view that I need as an investor. What is my return? What is my cash on cash return? What is my net operating income, cash flow, total equity, total value, and real-time visibility into my portfolio, instead of just doing like an annual, spreadsheet pro forma type of update that I do with the 1099 that I get at the end of the year, and just seeing backwards like what happened. I want to be in the know, like on a real-time basis. So that investor dashboard gives me all those metrics to be in the know, but it also gives me that real-time visibility across all of my rental property finances. And this is also something that is automated. So what we also do, besides pulling in the different transactions that you have in the property management software, we're also pulling, for example, your property taxes. So you have this sort of like checking account type of experience instead of the PDF experience that you have in your owner statements, that shows you real-time transactions of all of your property finances, on top of which you can add, for example, things like your travel expenses. Let's say you took a flight to see your property, you can write it off in your taxes. You can add that as a simple, literally 2 clicks of a button, and you're done. You have that full picture of all of your rental property finances in real time, everything in real time. So that really brings me that clarity. Another thing that I'm getting in my investor dashboard, which as a whole we call it like the property hub, the marketplace, and the investor dashboard together. We also get access to different vendors. So we have integrations to different vendors that are relevant for me as an owner, lenders, insurance providers, inspectors, 1031 exchange providers, so that I can get with a click of a button an immediate quote. I can get with a click of a button a pre-approval. And that way I don't need to search online, go through different places. And we even negotiated some of these vendors. So me as an owner right now, when I'm your client, I have everything I need from you. You as my property manager, with the access to all of these tools, can act as my trusted advisor to really guide me in the right direction when I want to do something, whether it's to grow my portfolio, optimize my existing portfolio, etc. So this is on the investor dashboard side. And this is something, again, I can log in on a daily basis, see how everything is going, being updated on every transaction that is happening, etc. The marketplace serves me as an investor as a source for two things. First, I can buy more properties because what we're doing, we are integrating a vast network of off-market inventory providers, wholesalers, turnkey providers, and home builders, all off market, nothing from the MLS. And we push it into that marketplace. And all these properties are in your area of operations, so that you as the property manager can manage it for me when I decide to buy it.
Right.
So I can have access to exclusive properties that I can't find anywhere else, that when I have the ability, the financial capability to grow my portfolio, I can do it almost with the click of a button.
But where does that inventory come from? From another property owner in our portfolio that says, click, I want to sell my property, and puts in a price that they think?
Good question. Also, so we have, like, we call it two inventory sources. One, outside inventory source. One is an inside inventory source. The inside inventory source is properties that were listed by other owners in, so like, my property manager's client database. Again, all off market. These properties wouldn't be found anywhere else. But we also pull more inventory from our outside inventory sources, which are other wholesalers, turnkey providers, and home builders in your area of operation. So I'm buying properties in a market that I know. I'm buying properties in a market that I can evaluate. I maybe already know. So, like, what are the best neighborhoods? What are the best zip codes? And I can target those with the inventory that I have. And I can also utilize my existing properties to buy those. So I can refinance one of my existing properties literally with the click of a button.
And they get the lender will get, or the potential lender, the vendor lender will get all the details of the property, so you don't have to send anything else. It's all there.
Auto-populated.
Beautiful.
Most of the vendors that we have are integrated through an API, so much of the data is already auto-populated, so you don't need to go through all of these processes. For some, you might need to go through, but we partnered up with some fintech lenders, like tech venture-backed companies that have a very seamless process, even if you have to go through it from the very beginning. So you can refinance, cash out, use those proceeds, buy another property. You can 1031 a property that you want to sell for whatever reason, buy another property also, and everything can be done within the platform. Or you can also sell your property. Let's say you want to sell your property and put it on the market and sell it as it is with a tenant inside. No need to wait for the tenant to vacate. No need to risk yourself in putting the property on the MLS with a tenant inside, and then
that's horrible.
Who knows what happens?
Oh my God, horrible experience.
Yeah, a lot of horror stories. And then you can sell it on your own timeline. You don't have to wait for the lease to end. Let's say you need the money right now, list it on Blanket. You can list it that way.
So let me ask you a couple of questions. What is the view? So many of our owners are myopically focused on cash return. And I think that our owners should be focused to some extent on cash return. What they're not focusing on is are the other ways that you make money in real estate. Number one, you're inflating away debt over time if you've got a reasonable interest rate. Principal pay down. You've got the tax benefits associated with depreciation. So will owners in Blanket be able to see their principal pay down as a payment to themselves? It's a forced savings plan in essence. Will they have any ability to see potential depreciation that they would get in specific markets? Because in Oklahoma, for example, there's been 100% depreciation for a long time. That's going away. There's also in the state of Oklahoma, there's the 100%, I think, Indian depreciation based on Indian territory and specific rules of Oklahoma. And many of our owners don't see that depreciation as, they don't even know it exists. They need to talk to a CPA about doing it right. They need to do cost segregations to make sure that they're maximizing their depreciation. And then they don't look at that as, I actually didn't pay $20,000 or $30,000 of income tax because I wrote that off as depreciation. And that is 37% or 35 or 32% times 40,000 or whatever the number is. It's tax savings. That's cash in my pocket. So that's one thing that I try to explain to owners. And of course, I don't get to speak with as many owners as I'd like to, but when I talk to them about the benefits of real estate, I personally in my portfolio don't care that much about cash on cash return. I care about principal pay down over 30 years, and I care about depreciation.
Exactly.
How do they see that in Blanket?
So first of all, we have the principal pay down. You can literally see exactly how much principal was paid specifically that
Yep.
portion. You can also see, so like the loan balance, we have like a progress bar that shows it very visually.
Beautiful.
You have also the appreciation that was gained because we have your purchase price. Okay, you can have the ability to also add any closing costs or any home improvements that you've made to have the calculation super tight and precise. And so you have appreciation, you have the principal pay down. The only thing we don't have is like the ability to show you the depreciation, because the depreciation is a challenging one, and as you said, it varies by state.
Yeah.
It varies by state, and it's definitely something I would love to add, but I really think this is something that, at least at this point, is more like an educational type of thing. And I would do this a lot with the previous company that I worked for. So I always vouch for, so like, why should we invest in new construction rental properties? Because of that appreciation, because depreciation is based on the construction element and not the land element.
Right.
So the bigger the construction element, and this is only new construction properties, and the smaller the land element, you can write off literally almost any taxes that you owe.
Yeah.
But if you buy a very old one, so there is almost like no depreciation to be written off. So that makes that thing a little bit so like different when we look at the entire perspective. But in general, I definitely would like to have that and see that in the future in Blanket. So definitely add it to the product roadmap.
It definitely raises also the ability to have trusted CPA vendors, people that know specifics about your tax environment for your state or whatever's going on nationally in legislation. One other thing that I wanted to ask about, there is sometimes a desire for property management companies to not show real-time data. If I can find at the end of the month that we really should not have sent out this vendor for $70 or $100 to do something, and instead I want to pay that back to an owner before they get pissed off for finding out that we did something that we shouldn't have done, I have that ability when I send them a monthly statement. So a property manager can go and look at all the statements before they go out and go, you know what? I told the maintenance tech not to do that. The tenant should fix their own blinds, and yet we billed them for that. I want to reimburse them for that cost, and then I will go to the tenant and say, that needs to go on you. So a good example is recently we had there was a plumbing issue, and I spoke to the plumber, and the plumber said, yeah, I was able to clear it. I pulled out a bunch of roots, but also a bunch of tampons. Sorry, that's going to the tenant, because the tenant knows that she should not be flushing that stuff down the toilet. Now, if it was real time, I haven't gotten the bill. I don't know when we'll get the bill. We'll get it in the next couple of days. But if we get that bill and it shows up in real time on the owner's portal before I've had the chance to take that back, because I have to ultimately, I can bill it to the tenant, but it must go through the owner's statement because it's something that comes off. Otherwise I pay it as a property management company from our operating account.
Exactly.
It must do that. If it updates in real time and they happen to pop on at the wrong time, they see that there's a $120 plumbing cost, they're going to be like, what the heck? I didn't even know that this was happening. So there's some stuff that I want to prevent owners from seeing. How do we deal with that when there's real-time visibility on everything?
So first, even if it would happen, it's easy explainable. Like if it's going to be reimbursed, you'll see that in literally when it's going to be reimbursed in real time. Because what we do is we're not so like getting that transaction and it's done, it's closed. Because it's real time, it's also updated in real time when there is like the reimbursement. So it will appear so like other income whenever that money so like will go back.
Okay.
So it will be fixed. It might be fixed in a couple of days or etc. So like no, like, and I think in general as a perspective, like nothing is burned, everything's okay, correct. There was an expense, but you'll see that fixed in a couple of days. So no rush.
Yeah.
And I think that in general that really changes a little bit the perspective on everything, instead of just waiting for like a monthly update that you have to always like gather everything up and make sure that everything is lined up. Sort of like an ongoing type of partnership going forward. We're taking care of everything. Don't worry. Like everything is taken care of, and you'll see that in literally in a couple of days once it will be reimbursed. So transactional view type of solution is already in place. Like you can literally see that. But in general, what we also enable, and again, there are accounting related transactions that are not relevant for the owner. Internal, so like movements that we have between our GL accounts that again are not relevant, not because we want to hide them or anything. It's just not relevant and it creates a lot of noise. And I can give also the opposite example. There are property managers that are literally sending out not the owner statement, but the general ledger sort of like view, which is with all the internal And then owners are literally going bananas. They don't understand anything that's
Yeah.
happening. Like
Yeah.
same transaction moving from place to place. Like why? Like I was billed that same expense like even like
Right.
5 times.
Right.
No. So what we enable, just to also make sure there is no confusion on that, what we call is sort of like suppressed fees.
Yeah.
You choose what are suppressed fees. Again, that accounting wise are not relevant for the owner.
Yeah.
It can make more confusion than value. So we eliminate that also. We eliminate that noise. We set that in the onboarding. We set those sort of like suppressed fees, and then it's all taken care of. And me as an owner, eventually, I'm getting the right data and the exact
Clean.
data that I want to get there, cleaned
Not the irrelevant noise.
Exactly.
So you did 8 years as a commander in the Israeli Navy, is that right? I mean, I think we should talk about this. Your accent is, you speak great English. Your accent is not the same as mine. Where are you sitting right now?
Currently, I'm sitting in Tel Aviv.
Oh, what a great city! Lucky.
Indeed, yeah. This is exactly behind me here, Tel Aviv.
Oh my God.
The main highway.
Beautiful. Love Tel Aviv. Good party scene, good food, good people, good
Indeed.
beach. Okay, so you're in Tel Aviv. You found this idea after you served in the Navy. You joined a couple of companies. I want to hear the whole thing. What's your whole story, and how did you end up starting a technology business?
Well, I'll start by saying that I was never in like the tech space. No relation to high tech. I'm a real estate guy. This is what I loved, and this is what I intended to do pretty much all my life. And I was fortunate just to have that opportunity to really mix it with technology and really create a larger impact than what I imagined. But the start really started with pretty much, I think, as everybody's story in real estate. I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Yep.
At the age of 13, my mom bought me that book. I hated books. I wouldn't lie. I wouldn't say that I was this little good learner, read a lot of books. I hated books, but this was the first book that got me interested. And then I went into sort of like this wormhole of just reading only books about real estate and self-improvement type of thing.
Yep.
And I remember I would mark a lot of stuff, and write notes. Like I was always happy and excited about, extracting tips for being better. And taking that into account, and also like having my mom as my role model that was able to amass an impressive portfolio with literally we came as immigrants to, not immigrants, but sort of like immigrants to Israel from Ukraine. My entire family is from Ukraine. There was a big wave from the Soviet Union after it sort of like broke down into Israel and to other countries, and we were the ones who sort of like chose Israel as our Jewish home because we are a very old Jewish family in Ukraine. And we literally had like all the reasons why not to succeed or not to grow and become and reach to a better position and a better place in our lives. And seeing my mom, how she literally worked 3 jobs and with even a minimum wage was able to amass a real estate portfolio really got me. So interesting concept. Like, taking somebody else's money, which is the bank, buying with it a property that appreciates and pays off for that sort of like money that I took as a loan, and having even some money left aside to really use it for my daily like needs. Quite an interesting
Sounds
concept.
pretty good.
And then I said, okay, yeah, pretty good. Like nobody told me about the different challenges there are there, but that concept sounded very good. And that was sort of like my first spark around real estate. And at the age of I think 19, I saved money. So like I worked also during school, saved some money, got some help from my parents that took on a loan. So like on my behalf, a small loan. And I bought a rental property in Atlanta, Georgia, not in Israel. I was in Israel. I literally just started my active duty service in the Israeli Navy. And so like went on this crazy idea of buying a rental property 1,000 miles away that I never saw in real life, trusting a person that I never met, never knew. I did some scary things in my life, but this was by far the scariest. The scariest, man. But also the best decision looking backwards. The best decision. Financially and by setting so like this first step in my career. So I bought this rental property in Atlanta, Georgia, saw that it works. At that point, I sort of like, I didn't buy any more properties because I started my active duty service, because this is where the time I was enlisted into the Israeli Naval Academy. I had a very interesting time there. I served for about 8.5 years as a naval commander on board a naval warship as a chief engineer. and afterwards executive officer of the Israeli Naval Academy. So I came back so like to training after I finished my active duty service. So like on as we say in the field, but on the water.
Yeah.
I came back so like to be a lead instructor of the Israeli Naval Academy to teach so like the next generations of naval cadets. So this is also where I got my passion to talk a lot, but also to to coach and to help people learn new things. Quite an interesting time. I commended hundreds of soldiers, petty officers, and officers. Most of which I can't really talk about again because I always explain like why specifically in the Navy we can't really talk about anything, like even things that are not necessarily crazy as in the movies, because the Navy is pretty much the only, so like at least in Israel, it's the only arm of the Israeli Defense Forces that is always in the enemy's field,
Wow.
in the enemy's territory.
Yeah.
Like Air Force is going out, taking a very precise action, coming back. Infantry, same thing as well. The Navy is always there in a lot of places, so we can't literally talk about even some very specific stuff as just cruising and gathering intel.
Yeah.
So definitely exciting time. I would say made 90% of who I am today. Values, ethics, approach to life, perspective, pretty much everything. With one of the, I think, biggest wins and takeaways from that time is how to feel comfortable in uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
This is literally the thing that you're being trained on the most from the first moment you start your naval service. The feeling comfortable with uncertainty, and I think nothing could have better prepared me
For startup life.
like exactly nothing,
Making
like,
decisions with uncertainty, with imperfect
exactly.
information. Okay, great.
Exactly. And so this was an exciting time. In that time, I kept sort of like helping other fellow naval officers to invest in US real estate with so like my knowledge, etc. And when I finished, normally a lot of naval officers who is really aware of that. It's sort of like taking a like vacation, like literally as you finish your duty, you immediately take a long vacation for about like 6 months. We call it the big trip.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's going to like South America, to like
India.
Thailand, India, like you name it. The first day that I finished my active duty service, I was on a plane to the United States to check out some new like developments for the company that I started working for. So no rest, no no time to take a break. Just wanted to get into the business, and I had a crazy hunger to succeed. And so that's how I started. So literally the first day after, I started working for a private US real estate investment firm that was focused on built to rent, mainly when built to rent wasn't really a term. It was like new construction for investment purposes. That was focused a lot on built to rent in the United States, pretty much across any market that you can imagine. We also had some projects in Europe, some very exotic projects, but the main focus that I always had is really single family rental properties, whether existing, whether new, but built to rent was always so like that focus. Started there as head of acquisitions, afterwards vice president of business development, oversaw our entire operation in the United States, from managing our contractors, doing the land acquisition, the due diligence, up until like leading all the other and managing all the other deal related parties that we had, whether it's the lenders, insurance providers, inspectors, pretty much across the board. At that time, I oversaw about $150 million worth of acquisitions.
Wow.
For over 1,000 individual investors, mainly mom and pops, but also some accredited investors and some institutional investors as well. So I really had this very interesting school regarding like how rental property owners think, and for pretty much every like background that you can imagine. I worked with Chinese, Russians, like Israelis, Canadians, American investors, of course, and really saw these like different mentalities and how people approach rental property investing as a whole, from the crazy stuff to the very inspiring stuff. And the people that really helped me succeed throughout this time was really our property managers.
Mm-hmm.
These were like actual partners in some project, like literally equity partners in some projects, and then some just our long-term partners for any like investor rental property owner that we refer to.
Sure.
Because they were always my boots on the ground, my center of knowledge, my closest friends. And pretty much a lot of what I learned was really thanks to my time with them. So that was about 3 years there. During that time, I also co-founded a nonprofit organization here in Israel, actually, that renovates homes of senior citizens in need and Holocaust survivors. We've set it up with other fellow naval officers as well. Started literally ourselves, first of all,
Awesome.
renovating, then started raising some funds from different donors, and then you build it for a very impressive and really an organization to be proud of, because really what we've done, just you need to see the reactions
I bet.
to understand and feel how impactful it is. Sometimes it might be just regular paint job, taking off some mold, some fixes, but the expression that
The
oh man,
gratitude.
like it's insane. So this one is really close to heart. And then at that point, I decided to make a move, an actual move, to move to Toronto, to Canada, to set up my own investment firm, to sell new construction properties in the United States to Canadian investors. Did that for about like almost a year before COVID started. And then, so like that was the point where I started to become more aware of that challenge of owner churn.
Mm-hmm.
Like this was a gradual understanding of how big owner churn is in the industry. And it really, like, this whole thing started when I heard about the statistics. This was the first time that my brain really went bananas. I asked my property management friends that we work with and partners, like, how much properties are you losing each year to churn? Pretty much all of them said around 30%.
Wow.
And this blew my mind, because I positioned myself for a second in the business owner's seat. If I would lose 30% of my revenue generators every year, I can imagine the implications on the team, the operations. It's like, to every business owner, this is like a tragedy. Like, and to property managers, to my surprise, it was like a regular Tuesday. Like, it's
It's
what it is.
painful. It's painful. It doesn't matter how you spend it. It's really painful. You paid so much in terms of Google spend and a BDM and everything else to acquire a resident, a property owner. To lose them is very painful. Yeah.
Exactly.
So you
So
decided to start Blanket. You found your niche as soon as you heard that 30% churn was a normal statistic in the property management industry.
that clicked. That clicked because the thing that really made me even more, I would say, surprised, is by how there is no solution, no process in place to try to mitigate that. Because what we were used to as property managers, to mitigate that loss of doors, by pouring more money into different marketing campaigns and try to somehow offset that trend with new rental property owners that we bring in.
But why bring in new owners if you know that 30% of them are going to leave in the first 6 months, year, whatever?
Exactly. I would say even more than that. Look at yourself. This is something that one of our clients also said. Thanks to Blanket, I understood that I'm sitting on a gold mine that I'm not mining. Because at the end of the day, your clients, your rental property owners, want to buy more properties. Probably the majority of them would like to grow their portfolio if they had the opportunity.
And if they just trusted that you were doing a good job and they didn't have a thought every week that they wanted to fire you.
Exactly. So it was really there was a big gap in communication. There was a lack of technological capabilities, because it requires a lot of time. You can relate. Creating even that, one of a single few owner performance review sessions that you're doing for the larger clients. It takes time to create that pro forma.
Yeah.
Maybe there's also a presentation that needs to be created. Organizing all it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
It can take sometimes maybe it can take weeks because you're doing other stuff. So imagining how much time it also takes is without a technological platform to facilitate that, really made this thing scream at me. Something needs to be done here. And it really resonated also with my, general approach to bringing that value to owners like myself and my parents that need it. We don't have to be institutional investors to get institutional service.
Right.
Institutional type service. What do we need? We need reporting. we need communication. We need some help with disposition and acquisition. Like we don't really need a lot, but there isn't no way to provide that without a technological platform.
Many startups go through various iterations before they land on the final thing that they present to the world, or maybe they present multiple things and they fail and they turn and finally find success. Was Blanket the same in its first iteration, essentially conceptually as it is now?
Same. Literally, we raised our seed round about a year ago from some of the leading venture capital funds in the United States. And literally the product as it was in our first, mock-ups, designs that we iterated with the property managers that we started this whole, because we had like a beta group type of thing with about 10 property managers that we built everything. And it was literally the same. The only difference is we haven't built out the entire platform yet. There are many things to come that really make this as a crazy platform.
So what are some of the biggest hurdles that you encountered while you were building Blanket?
Well, I think we underestimated the challenge of the GL accounts. I think when we thought about, how quick we'll create the investor dashboard, we thought we have a killer team. We have the best software developers in Israel, by far. They literally can do the impossible in no time. And even before we understood how strong of a team we can build, we thought that really it can take maybe 6 months or so, or maybe even between 3 to 6 months at best. And we underestimated how challenging it is to create this dashboard due to the cleanliness of data.
Right.
The GL accounts can be a mess. They can really be a mess. And unintentionally, we sort of became accounting auditors to be able to bring our investor dashboard to that level that is really precise and is really readable, easy to digest for the rental property owner.
But is that because, without getting into too much detail about general ledgers, is that because the chart of accounts is different from company to company? I might call it plumbing repair and somebody calls it plumbing OpEx or something like that. So if everybody's using the NARPM standard chart of accounts, wouldn't that be much easier than you'd have the same GL codes for everybody?
We wish that there was an industry standard that everybody's implementing, but not everybody's implementing it. That's the problem. And it becomes even more challenging because every property management software has a different level of customization.
Got it.
So some fields are static, some fields are dynamic. And for some things you can write you can write a comma, and in some fields you can't write a comma. So it makes this whole thing so problematic and so complex because you're also dealing with different platforms and because you're also dealing with uncleanliness and unstandardization of data. That, man, wow.
But so it's also, I suspect that if somebody changes the chart of accounts in the middle of, they go, oh my God, there is a NARPM standard chart of accounts. And then they change, and all the historic data is washed, and it's all terrible unless you go back and classify everything accordingly.
Yes. So we have a solution for that. I wouldn't get into because this is already the secret sauce, but we have a solution for that as well. We have the solution for changes and the I would say the unorganization or the lack of organization in the GL accounts. Today our platform can really take the messiest, the most problematic organization and turn it into a beauty, literally beauty in the eyes of the investor. So I would say this was one of the biggest challenges.
One last question. You've seen a lot from the property management side, from the ownership side. What's, based on your experience and of both investing and running Blanket, what advice would you give to a property manager that would help them keep their owners happy and retain property management that is not technology related?
Well, good question. So first, communication. Really, communication can really solve a lot and prevent a lot of stuff from happening. And it requires a little bit of, I would say, finesse and some the type of the right type of communication. We don't have to say everything, because a lot of information is useless and not necessarily needed by the rental property owner. So there's the first hurdle of understanding what we need to communicate. And as you said, the work orders are a big thing here.
Yeah.
Big thing here. And there are solutions for that can be pretty much simple. Like even creating, like a template, like a Google Excel, let's say Google Sheets, okay? Real-time form that you can create with a certain automation, simple one that really anybody can do to just update like things from the software into that Google Sheets and just show the work orders. Like maybe that's the solution. I don't know. But I'm just saying, identify the right things that are really valuable to your owners and just communicate them in the right way that will make them feel in control. So really that thing, because most owners are really afraid of the unknown.
Right.
And when the unknown is cleared and you know what's happening, a lot of questions are alleviated and wouldn't happen. So first of all, it's communication. Communicate the right things to your owners.
Can I say one thing? I don't want to interrupt you from your next thought, so keep your next thought in mind. But we have communication as one of our core values. Communicate it. We send every work order that comes through that gets assigned to our owners so that they see the PDF, they can see the tenant name, the property name, etc. The problem is we want to communicate, and what I train our team to do is communicate the things that are important, not the things that are just nonsense noise, as we've called it in the show, but also communicate proper next steps and guidance, because somebody wants to know, what would you do if this were your property? If there's a plumbing issue, should I replace the entire sewer line for $7,000 or $8,000 or $10,000, or should I just plan to escrow money? I know that every 6 months I'm going to have to send a snake down there to clean out the roots. What would you do? So don't tell somebody your plumbing lines have an issue unless you can also tell them 2 or 3 options for what they could explore and do and what you would do yourself. So communicate, but communicate, as you say, the right things and some potential solutions and the next steps. Otherwise, it's just nonsense and garbage. And an owner says, why am I paying you to tell me the problem? I'm paying you to give me a problem and the solution.
Exactly. So
that's it.
Exactly. So true. I want to capitalize on that and say another thing. Take financial advisors. Okay. Take financial planners, financial advisors. They are doing that, but they're working in sort of like a very regulated industry where there are a lot of things that they can't do, they can't say. So they are very limited in what they can do. We as property managers, we are expected to act as trusted advisors, and there are no limits and boundaries to what we can provide. There's no like regulations to what we can say. Of course, like investment advice and things like that, we're literally supposed to give investment advice. This is why we are hired for. And investment advice is really an encompassing like a category that has a lot of things. Some of them are things regarding the maintenance. And I think we got to take that in both hands and just, implement that at our core, that we are advisors, and advisors advise on what to do. They don't just show you the problem. They are not reporters.
Right.
We're not reporters. We are advisors. So really taking that and communicating, as we said, the right messages, but also explaining sometimes the why we should do this and this. And so like the reasoning behind option A, option B, option C. And then in most cases, we'll probably just say as rental property owners, this is what I even do. Like even me, which I consider myself to be an experienced investor, in most cases, I just tell my property manager, whatever you see fit. You gave me those options. I trust you to do the right decision. Just do it.
Right.
Like, because I have so much on my mind with a lot of stuff, other stuff going on.
You don't want to
I just want the professional. Exactly. I want the professional to handle that.
Right.
So in many cases, providing these options would literally make our lives easier, because they will just say, I trust you. Just do it. All good. That's it. Thumbs up.
Yeah.
So communication, the right messages, the right way with the next steps. And I think the last thing that I want to add is really conveying that message that we are really like we have the same interests in mind.
Yeah. Interesting.
And literally say that, because a lot of people consider property management as an expense. as another line on
Right.
our cash flow pro forma.
Right.
I see that, and this is something that I hope more property managers will start to convey as an investment. It's an investment in our time. It's an investment in our future. It's an investment in our most valuable asset that we have probably in our entire lives. And just, it's an education. It's a long process. It's a long-term result, but it's worth it at the end of the day. Because if at least our clients, start at your home, we don't need to change the industry, but starting with our clients, making them understand that the money they are spending is not an expenditure. It's actually an investment, and that we are working into a mutual goal. And if we can even ask your rental property owners, what is your goal? Why are you investing in rental properties? Why did you buy these rental properties? Some might be accidental landlords say,
Sure.
I got stuck with it.
Sure.
Okay. But why are you doing this? And maybe the answers would be surprising and very similar to what we're doing. If we'll have that opportunity to tell them, hey Matt, we have the same goal. We're also building our business to provide to our loved ones, to our team members, to our families, a better financial and stable future. Our goal is also to grow our portfolio so we'll be able to do that and leave a legacy for our kids. So if that's your goal, it's my goal. We are partners in this. We are partners in getting to that goal together. And I think if we'll have the communication part set, and if we'll be able to communicate that mutual goal that we're striving for, and showing them that we're partners and that they are investing in this and not like taking another expense on the cash flow pro forma,
right,
it would completely change the conversation. So I think these are the two things that are not technology based or so like that require a specific solution in place. It's communication
just
and
having the
just
conversation,
conveying the goal. Yeah, and conveying the mutual goal.
Who are some people in the industry that you really respect and trust? Maybe somebody that I should be talking to for this podcast.
Well, there's a person that really sparked a lot of like what I'm doing today. This is his name is Brian Jenkins from today it's Pure, but his first company was AHI Properties in Alabama. So even before this whole notion of selling into your own network, doing these owner performance review sessions was sort of like a technology-based solution, he was doing it by himself. Like he was doing sometimes dozens of transactions for his owners to his owners and helping them sell properties in his own network. And I'm talking like years ago. And he was doing these like performance review sessions with the help of a very trusted and super talented at that point, who was his business development manager, who I also proud to call him a friend today. They were doing this sort of like together, and a lot of sort of like my inspiration also came from there. So Brian is definitely a person that I really look up to and trust. He is today he's leading the institutional sort of like relations at Pure. So definitely that's someone to interview and see how he's looking, how from his like perspective, how he catered to investors and now even to institutional investors, taking that like whole thing another level. So yeah, Brian is definitely
I love it.
Worthwhile.
This has been great, Lior. I want to thank you for being on the podcast. How do people reach you if they want to get connected, if they want to have Blanket Homes be a service provider in their property management business?
So easy. Look, I'm normally, my team always jokes that I don't sleep, but they can contact me directly, like by LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn, send me a message. I normally respond pretty quickly. We can schedule a call. I can connect you to Ben, our partnerships manager, which is amazing. You would love every moment with him, even if you decide eventually not to go with the Blanket, but you'll enjoy it. Or you can just go to our website. It's blankethomes.com. Click on the very pinky button there. Book a demo.
Yeah.
Exactly, and you'll be easily connected to Ben. And again, if I can help with anything that is not even Blanket related, like feel free to reach out. I helped a lot of property managers even before that, to how to structure so like this investor relations mindset, even without a technology platform in place. There are a lot of things as we talked about that don't necessarily require a tech platform that we can already do today that can really help us win our clients for life. So I'll be happy to help with anything I can.
Lior Abramovich is the co-founder and CEO of Blanket. Blanket Homes, blankethomes.com, bringing a decade of experience in the single-family rental market with over $150 million of acquisitions for over 1,000 individual investors. He's also the co-founder of a nonprofit organization that renovates homes of senior citizens in need and Holocaust survivors, and has completed 8 years of service as a naval commander in the Israeli Defense Forces. Lior, I'm really excited to meet you in October, and we really appreciate you being on the show.
Me too, man. Enjoyed every moment of it. Thanks, man.
Take care. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Same Day Podcast. Tune in to a new show each week and be sure to subscribe to get future episodes.